So we have managed to automate all of the alloys in all the mods 10. However, we still cannot make the ATM star. We've still got quite a process. So within the quest page of the ATM star, we only have 3 of the 10 needed ingredients, plus some other bits and bobs that we haven't yet acquired, such as the nether star blocks, which we can make, and the alloy blocks, which again we can actually make as well. But at this moment in time, I'm heavily focusing on the Nexium emitter. The reason being, we have mechanical arms already being automated. I've gone ahead and made some of the other items that are required for the Nexium emitter, and we only need 2 more items to make the Nexium emitter. Now in today's video, I'm only going to tackle one of these items, and that being the Tesla coil. Now for the majority part of this, it is just craftables, and I've gone ahead and made everything that we can craft in terms of the iron mechanical component, the electrum coil block, and all of the plates. But we cannot make the HV accumulator and the advanced electronic component. And for the HV accumulator, the only thing we actually need is the hop graphite plate. We have no way of getting hop graphite at all. So it looks like we're going to have to get into immersive engineering. But we do not have a room for immersive engineering. So let's go find a suitable place for that. Okay, so now that we have a room, which I don't think is big enough for immersive engineering, we could actually make a little bit of a start. So to get this hop graphite, there is actually a mystical agriculture seed, which we cannot and have not got the means to make yet. But we actually need the graphite dust. But to get the dust, we actually need an industrial squeezer, which we need to put in some coke dust, which means we're going to need a coke oven. And that is actually the first multi-block structure that we need to make in immersive engineering, because immersive engineering is based around multi-block structures, whether it be coke ovens, blast furnaces, an alloy kiln, or even some of the refineries, assemblers, excavators, etc, etc. There's just a load of machines that we're going to need to make, and the squeezer is going to be one of them. But of course we need the coke oven to start any of that process. And to get the coke brick, it's actually fairly simple. All we need is any sort of brick with some clay and some form of sandstone. And now we need 27 of these. And we're also going to need our engineer's hammer. And all we're going to do is we're going to place it down in a 3x3 like this, making sure we fill in the middle. And then we simply just right click with the hammer and we get the coke oven. But now that we have the oven, how do we actually make coke from this? Well, we've got to put in some coal and it'll smelt it over time and it'll give us 2 outputs. One will be the coal coke and the other will be creosote oil. Now this isn't something that we actually need, but for the aesthetics of the room, I'm going to make it anyway. And this is the blast furnace. And again, it's rather quite simple. It's any bricks with some nether bricks and some magma blocks. But I'm not going to go ahead and make the very first tier of the blast furnace, because there is an upgraded version that allows us to automate things from at a later stage in case we ever need to. And that requires the reinforced blast bricks, which is simply just a steel plate, and the blast bricks, which is what we already have. Now, if we were to create the starter blast furnace, it would be in the exact same manner as the coke oven. It would just be a simple 3 by 3 by 3 cube, making sure we fill in the middle, and then right clicking with the hammer. And then it should turn into what looks like the coke oven, but instead of it being grey, it'll be a bit more red. To make the automated blast furnace, the improved one, we have to place down the reinforced blast bricks in the exact same manner as before, but this time we have to put a hopper on the middle block of the 3 by 3 at the top, and then we simply right click with the engineer's hammer, and then it will turn into this little multi-block structure which has an input at the top. We can only input from the top, an output coming from the front and the 2 sides. However, when we open up this improved blast furnace, we can see it needs some sort of preheaters from the left and right side. So when I said the 2 sides were an output, they're actually not, they're for preheaters. So I've gone ahead and made some blast furnace preheaters. We can just simply connect those up to the left and right side. And now these need any sort of power. So one of the uses for the blast furnace is for steel, and that's what most people will use it for. However, we're at the stage now we actually already have the steel seed, so we actually don't need this machine that much at all, but I will show you how it works. If we simply just put in some iron ingots and some coal coke, you can see it'll start to smelt it. Once the arrow is filled, we'll get ourselves some steel ingots and some slag. Slag isn't really used for much. Steel is obviously handy for a lot of crafting recipes within all of Mods 10. Now, there is one more machine that I want to make, and it allows us to make a load of different alloys within Immersive Engineering that we might need along the way. And that is the alloy kiln. This is very simple to make. It's just any sort of sandstone and any sort of bricks. And we only need 8 of these, because if we place it down in a 2 by 2 cube, right click on it with our engineer's hammer, it'll turn into this little alloy kiln. And with this alloy kiln, we can make ourselves electrum, invar, brass, bronze, and even some constantan as well. Again, we're not going to really need this right now, but it could be useful in the future. So with these 3 basic multi-block structures done, we can move on to the main machines. Now, there's only a couple I really want to make here, and that is the crusher and the squeezer. But as you can see, we're rapidly running out of room to fit those machines in. So I'm going to expand this room a little bit. Okay, so I've gone ahead and made the room a little bit bigger. I've even added a little bit of like a way just to go down. Again, just to split the room up a little bit, just so it's not all one level. And I think it would be quite nice to have like workbenches over here and over here at some point when we come to design this room. However, we are limited by the space that we have because of, on the other side of this wall is the main wall for the house. So, a little bit limited there. But hopefully we can get these 2 machines in. And speaking about those 2 machines, I've already gone ahead and made everything needed for those machines. Now, it was fairly simple. It's just a lot of crafting, a lot of steel. Like I said, if we didn't have the steel seed, we would have had to use this thing to do this thing. But luckily for me, we had the steel seed anyway. So let's go and make the crusher first, because we actually need that one more importantly, because we need the crushed coke. So I'm simply just going to be following this quest page, because it shows you exactly how to build these machines. However, I will show you in the video as well. So when it comes to the crusher, we want to start with 3 light engineering blocks, and to the left of those, we want some steel scaff blocks. We then want 1 steel scaff block on the next row, with then 2 light engineering blocks in front of the steel scaff block, and then we can go ahead and throw 2 rows of steel scaff blocks, and that is the main footprint of the crusher down. So let's move on to the next layer. So the next layer again consists of 3 of the light engineering blocks on top of the 3 previous placed light engineering blocks with a space next to them. And in the center block, we then want to place another light engineering block. And then we want to surround that middle light engineering block with some steel fences. And then on the final row, what we want to do is we want to leave a gap at the back, then place down a light engineering block, and at the front, a redstone engineering block as well. And then on top of the steel fences and the 1 light engineering block, we want to place down all of our hoppers. Going into those blocks, we can then give it a little tap. Make sure we tap the middle fence that we see there, because if we don't do that, it will not change. And of course, this thing uses FE. So again, what we're going to do is put an end gate on what looks like the control side of the machine on the top. So we want to get some crushed coke. We actually just want to throw it in and it'll start crushing it and spitting it out at the front over here. And we need 8 coke dust per 1 hop graphite dust, which we then can actually use the hop graphite dust to then create the hop graphite seed, which is what I'm going to use to get graphite for now. Although we can actually go and make the graphite B if we make the spawn egg and we place in 2 coal bees to get 1 graphite B in the industrial squeezer, which we're going to make in a minute once I have all of the coke dust. Okay, so just like that, we have 32 coke dust, which we only have 1 coal coke left, which is insane. But now we've got to make the squeezer, which I'm going to put on this side over here. So the squeezer is rather a small machine, and we want to create this L-looking shape using 4 steel scaff with a light engineering block in the far corner with some steel scaff to create a U shape, or in this case an N shape, and the 2 blocks that we have in the middle, we want to place down some fluid pipes. Next thing we want to place down is another light engineering block on top of the previous light engineering block to continue it up, and then we want to place down a redstone engineering block on the front row to the left. We then want to grab some wooden barrels, and next to the light engineering block, we then want to place down all 4, like so. On top of those wooden barrels, we want 3 steel fences, making sure we leave the middle block open, and we might struggle here because we need the piston facing down. We can then remove those steel scaff blocks, those temporary blocks, and then we need to smack the block in between the light engineering block and the redstone engineering block. You need to right click on the barrel in between those and it will turn into the industrial squeezer. So now what we can do is throw in our coke dust. But of course we need to give this thing power first, so let's make sure we do that. And we give it power. If we look for 2 sort of dials on top of that, that's where we put in our power. Make sure it's connected up, and it'll start squeezing down all of our hop graphite. And now we can make ourselves the hop graphite seed. So let's go and do that. Now the hop graphite seed is a tier 4 seed, so we need some Imperium, obviously the prosperity seed base, and the graphite dust. Now we only need 1 of these seeds. However, with this being a new seed, I actually don't have a bulk storage set up for this, so I'm going to have to grow it a little bit first to then create the bulk storage. to put in our system so we don't overload our system with graphite essence. And just like that, we have our very first hop graphite ingots. However, we cannot make this HV accumulator until we have the graphite plates, which we actually need the bottling machine for. So the bottler is quite a simple little machine, and if we start ourselves with a light engineering block, and then we can place down 3 steel scaff, then place in the iron sheet metal block and our little redstone engineering block in the middle. We can then duplicate the 2 back corner blocks, and we can throw on the fluid pump in the middle. And let's not forget about our conveyors, making sure they're going this way. And then we need to find the correct place to tap, which seems to be like the middle conveyor belt. Again, this thing will require some power, so a simple end gate on the top will provide sufficient power. However, things are not done there because we still need 2 ingredients to get this hop graphite sheet, and those things are the metal press mold and obviously some creosote oil. Now I've got the creosote oil as a reward from one of the quests we completed earlier on. However, when it comes to the metal press, we do not have that at all. And the only way we can get that is through the engineer's workbench. So by simply using some treated wood fences, slabs, and an engineer's crafting table with a piece of iron, we get the engineer's workbench, which I'm going to place down about there. But to make the engineer's blueprint that we require, which is the metal press one, we have to actually craft it using an iron plate, a couple of blue dye, and some paper, and we will get the engineer's blueprint for the press molds. But it's not done there because we might have the blueprints, but we actually don't have the molds themselves. Where we get the molds is within the engineer's workbench, and we need some steel plating and some engineer wire cutters with the engineer's blueprint in, which is the metal press, and then outspits a metal press mold for the plates. And we can simply select from any of these molds right here, and we want the plate mold. That will give it us. Once we have our press mold, we can take it on over to the bottling machine. Just make sure it's being fed with creosote oil, which I've got 1 bucket of. I'm just going to use a advanced fluid tank, which we got from the reward, and a pipe just for now. Throw it in, and we can see this little bottle up here is filled up with 1 bucket of creosote oil. Then we have to just simply throw on the mold and the dust, and out pops our hop graphite plate. And just like that, we can finally make HV accumulator. And the only thing left is the advanced electronic components, which again we can make within the engineer's workbench. And we already have the crafting component blueprint from a reward, which we have right here. So we head back over to our workbench, we take out our mold blueprint, we throw in our crafting components blueprint, and now we want an advanced electronic component. So we need 2 vacuum tubes and some aluminium wire and some sort of plastic sheeting or duroplast sheet. Now I've already gone ahead and made the aluminium wire. However, the 2 vacuum tubes do require us to use the engineer's workbench, and that requires us to use the crafting components engineer's blueprint, which is what we already have. It's already in the table. We just need nickel plating, redstone dust, copper wire, and some glass. Now what I've gone ahead and done is I've made an extra couple of things so we could get 6, just in case we ever need some for the future. And we are so close to being able to get this advanced electronic component. However, we're going to run into a couple of issues because we need one of two things, which is plastic or duroplast. Now, because episode is about immersive engineering, I'm going to go down the duroplast sheet route, which for that, we need the bottling machine, which we already have. We've already got the press mold of the plate. We literally just need this phenolic resin, which we're going to need to make the refinery for. So now that I've got all the things ready for the refinery, let's make it. So we start by placing down 2 of the steel scaff with a light engineering block in the middle, and then 2 extra steel scafts as well. So we have a line of 5, and then we want to place down 5 fluid pipes in front of it. We then want to place down 2 steel scaff after we've placed the pipes, with 1 heavy engineering block, and then a couple extra steel scaff as well. Then on this front right corner, we want to place down a redstone engineering block. We then want to double up on the light engineering block and the heavy engineering block, and then we simply just want to place in some iron sheet metal. We want to place 4 on the left and 4 on the right, and then we want to double them up. So we've placed 8 on each side. And then we want to grab our engineer's hammer and right click on the top heavy engineering block, and it'll change into a refinery. And of course, like every other machine, it's going to need power. Now, we made this refinery to make ourselves the phenolic resin used for the duroplast sheet. Now, creosote oil we can actually get. That's not a problem. The other liquid, which I can't even try and pronounce the name of that, again, create within the refinery, which is just a silver plate and some ethanol. However, to get the ethanol, we need the industrial fermenter. So it looks like we've got hopefully one final multi-block structure to create for this room. Now, I have everything needed for the fermenter. It is a rather quite small machine, and it's very much the same setup as the squeezer. So we want to start off with 2 fluid pipes, and then surrounding those fluid pipes, we're going to place down some steel scaff. We then want to place down a light engineering block, and then we want to bring it round again with the steel scaff to create this U shape. We then want to double up on the light engineering block and place down the redstone engineering block as well. Once we have the redstone engineering block down, we want to then come over to the 2 blocks that are behind the light engineering block, and then we want to place down 2 to connect it, and then another 2 in the middle, as well as the iron sheeting on top. And then we want to click on the cauldron in the middle, in between the light engineering block and the redstone engineering block. And just like that, we have ourselves a fermenter. So now we need to start aging and fermenting some food products to start getting some ethanol. Now, the best way to get ethanol is actually with honey. You can get 250 per bottle of honey, whereas every other food gives between 20 and 80. And of course, we can place them in, but of course it's not going to work until we give it some power. There we go. Just like that, we have ourselves 1 bucket of ethanol. We can then pull out that ethanol, and with our ethanol now in a bucket, we can then put it straight into the refiner by putting it inside of the input with the blue above the port. And then we simply just want to place in some silver plating, and that will do its thing in creating ourselves a full bucket of the liquid that I cannot name. And using our bucket, we can pull it out. We then need to put it back in, but this time we need to get some creosote, which we get from the coke oven. Now that we have our bucket of creosote, we can go to the other port on the opposite side with the port with the blue on it, and it'll start working away, making us our bucket of phenolic resin, which we can then take out, come over to the bottler, put it into our tank so it feeds it inside of the bottler, and then we just simply throw our press down, and just like that we have ourselves a Duraplast sheet. Now we could make ourselves the advanced electronic component, which we then can make a Tesla coil from. And we can go ahead and claim all of our quests, meaning we only need one more item for the Nexium emitter, which is this gravitational modulating unit, which is for mechanism, which will be the next time. But unfortunately, we have run out of time for today's episode, so hopefully I have gone through the majority of immersive engineering, at least within all the mods 10 anyway, and I also hope you found this helpful. So thank you all for watching. If you have enjoyed it, make sure to smash the like button. I will decorate this room off camera. If you are new around here and you want to subscribe, please do. That would be amazing, and I will see you all again very, very soon. Goodbye.